So, conversation on X, my favourite playground. A robust conversation. To be fair, not like the one I was having with somebody who called me an imbecile. Nice. And then wouldn't back that up, but that's fine. Broad shoulders. But a conversation about education and whose responsibility it is to fund education. Turns out it's my responsibility. And in it, I'm saying, well, hang on a minute. Bridget Phillipson is the Secretary of Education for all children. And I get a robust response. And I think, oh shit, Anna, check that out. Have you got that wrong? Is she only the Education Secretary for state school kids and not all children? So I Google it, the fact library that is Google. But I then Googled it again, I made sure. But the question was quite simple. Is Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, responsible for all children, including those in private schools? The answer, yes, the Education Secretary is responsible for all children, including those in private schools. There you go. So, I'm like, hang on. How is this then? I mean, I know we've all sort of called her out on her all children only meaning 93%, but from a very basic technical perspective, she doesn't get to make that choice. The Prime Minister can't turn around and go, I'm Prime Minister only for the people that voted for me, but the ones that didn't vote for me, I'm not your Prime Minister. No, he's sadly the Prime Minister for all of us. Why is she able to be the Education Secretary for 93%? Who is overseeing the academic, mental and emotional well-being of the 7% from government? Who's doing that? We don't have an Education Secretary for private school kids. We have an Education Secretary for all school kids. So why is our Education Secretary so openly on a public platform discriminating against 7% of children? And why as a nation do we think that's okay? Tell me in any other sector where that would be okay. If we were, say, having Wes Streeting, who was only going to act for the 93% of people who use the NHS, but he's not going to act for the 7% of people that don't use the NHS. I mean, there'd be public outcry, wouldn't there? Any other sector, there would be a public outcry, but we seem to think it's okay to actively discriminate against 7% of the population's children. And that's the next bit. These are kids. They don't have a voice. They're not allowed to vote. I know Labour want to make it when they're 16, and I think that's a massive error for Labour, because all the 16-year-olds that have been displaced in their GCSEs are not going to vote for you. I hate to break it to you. And the ones doing their A-levels, you're done, mate. But we have a population of children who don't have a voice. And they have adults who are supposed to be their voice. And we have one adult who is at the top of the tree in regards to their education, and she is only acting for 93% of those children. I don't get it. I don't get how that's legal. I don't get how that's morally right. And she's open. She's not, this isn't hidden. This isn't in the shadows. She's openly saying that it is for our children, the 93%. Her language actively removes the 7%. They don't count. They're not part of this. They're just them. They're in the social pariah group. We only care about the 93% of children. And then we talk about the 93% of children who are so desperately underfunded, under-resourced. And I'm thinking about that and I'm going, hang on. Are you telling me that every child in state education is having a bad education? Because that's just not true. We know that's not true. If that was true, we have got way bigger fish to fry, but that's not true. We know that 90% of schools in the UK are outstanding or good. So, of course, there's room for improvement. Of course, there's always room for improvement in every aspect of your life. But we keep hearing this headline that 93% of children need their education saving. They don't. And we also keep hearing that it has to come at the cost of the private sector. But then here's a good one for you. And you pick up the most amazing stats on Twitter. But this was, I thought, very interesting. 90% of households on £120,000 income a year use state schools. Now, I don't earn £120,000. 80% of households on £200,000 a year use state schools. That's the 97th centile. I mean, I could only dream of earning 120 grand. 200, not a hope. But we are saying that children in state school are all underprivileged. And we're saying that children in private school are all overprivileged. Yet, some of the biggest earners in this country are in state school. So that doesn't fit Bridget's 93% versus 7%. That's nowhere near Bridget's 93%. I mean, she's on the 200 grand plus, and she's using state education when she could easily afford private education, but she doesn't want to because it goes against her principles. Fine, she's allowed her principles, but we're not. No? No. And it just, it was something that I thought was really, really interesting. And I think morally wrong. I'm sure it's got to be legally wrong. She was elected to be the education secretary for all children. So could somebody who's a human rights lawyer let me know how she's getting away with that? How is she getting away with only acting for 93% of the children in this country? Because that's the fact. And she's admitted it. Not my words, her words. If you could let me know, answers on a postcard, that'd be brilliant.